Being a dad is the most rewarding job on the planet, and being an entrepreneur is the most challenging. So, what's the secret to successfully doing both? Well, welcome to Wealth Wednesday. We go live every single Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, focusing on building your wealth. I'm Seth Ferguson. Really happy you're joining us today. I'll be joined in a little bit by Dwayne Rutherford. He is the producer of the Multifamily Conference. He's an entrepreneur. He's a father, and we will be talking about how we can take fatherhood and entrepreneurship and how do we successfully do both at the same time, mesh them together. But first, I just wanted to share a little bit about my own entrepreneurship journey. When I first started in, I guess, business, you could call it, I was a solo real estate agent, right? I was selling houses on my own. I was what Robert Kiyosaki would call a self-employed person. You know, the cash flow quadrant, right? Like you've got a job, you've got self-employed, then you have a business owner and an investor. I was self-employed, ended up selling real estate with somebody else. And basically, I was creating a job for myself. I was just selling houses, helping people make better real estate decisions. I wasn't building a business, though. And everything that's happened since that point, I have only one person to thank for that, and that's my son, Callan. So as soon as he came along, everything changed for me, right? Because before that, I was making decisions based on what I wanted. And I didn't really have to consider anybody else. I didn't really have to give any thought to a lot of stuff. It was basically, hey, I've got this commission money now. I can go spend it on this. I wasn't really thinking about the future. Everything was just present Seth, right? I was only worried about my present needs. And I still remember, the night Callan was born. It was a very stormy, well, I guess windy, blustery November evening. And I remember holding him in my arms for the very first time. And you're looking down at this little tiny baby who's very, very cute. And I remember like my life, like it just changed. It was like a blink of an eye and everything changed for me. All of a sudden, I had this incredible urge to do more and be a better person, go really, really bigger with what I was doing, but not for myself anymore because that was old Seth, but for this little tiny baby that I was holding. Like everything changed. My whole perception of my purpose in life changed when my son came along. And like I said, everything that's happened so far or since then has been because of him. So today I really wanted to focus on fatherhood because that's a really important part of my life, and it's probably a really important part of your life or somebody that in your life, and then also entrepreneurship, which is what brings us all together. Well, whether it's you're a real estate entrepreneur, whether you're in tech, whatever your business is, it could be sales, whatever type of business you're in, entrepreneurship and fatherhood, they are one of the most important driving forces out there. So I had to learn how to run a business because all the decisions I made when Callan came along, being a self-employed person wasn't going to cut it anymore because you can't do everything. You can't build an empire by yourself, right? You need a team. You need to build a business. So I had to learn very, very quickly what it took to get into business, how to structure business, how to run a team, how to lead people, how to create all the little parts and moving pieces inside a business. So I thought that it would be really good before we bring Dwayne on to talk about your number one job as an entrepreneur. And to answer that question, we have to really think about, well, what is a business, right? Because an entrepreneur is in business, right? You are building a business, but what is really a business? And I really had to think about this, and I had no idea when I first started. When I decided to make the transition from being in that self-employed quadrant, making my own job, over to building a business, I really had no idea what I was doing, and it was a pretty steep learning curve. So I had to really think about, well, what is a business? I read a whole bunch of books. I talked with a lot of very successful business owners, and this is the answer I came up with, right? So a business is a collection of repeatable systems and processes that work together to solve a problem in the marketplace. Okay, I'll say that again. A business is a collection of repeatable systems and processes that work together to solve a problem in the marketplace. That is what a business is. Now, your job or my job as an entrepreneur is to build those systems. That's all we're doing. Everything else feeds directly into the systems. And one thing I've learned, right? A couple years ago when something wasn't working right in the business when I wasn't getting the result I wanted. I wasn't really sure, what I needed to do. It's really easy to blame customers. It's easy to blame leads. It's easy to blame somebody else. It's easy to blame competitors. But what I found is every time I wasn't getting a result that I really wanted, it was because of me. It was how I was thinking about the problem. It was, there was something lacking in me that wasn't seeing the solution. So now whenever I encounter a problem, I always go internal and think about, okay, well, what am I missing? How can I do things better? And I actually created a framework for this. And I thought it would be really helpful to go through that framework with you, just in case you're in a spot right now, you're stuck as an entrepreneur, and this can help you break through it and kind of get to the other side with a lot clearer vision. So let's go over to the whiteboard here. So a couple like problems that we go through, or especially in my business, right? Because my business, I'll just break this down for you really simply here. So my business has 3 core pillars, right? So I'll do pillar number 1, pillar number 2, and pillar number 3. We'll make these Greek Greek pillars. Okay, so pillar number 1 is investments. Right? So this is actually finding the deals, finding opportunities, value-add opportunities, raising capital from investors, and completing the business plan and making a profit, earning a profit not only for the investors in the deal with us, but also for myself. That's pillar number 1. Pillar number 2 is education. I'll just say education. So it's, okay, how can we take the knowledge that we've amassed? How can we take the systems we've developed on this side and actually teach them to other people and share them, so then you can take them and apply them to your own business and your own investing, right? So we've got an online education course. It's called Discover Multifamily. We do free workshops, all that kind of stuff. We have the Multifamily Conference, which is coming up May 26th to 28th. Grant Cardone's coming. Talk about a huge business leader there. Alex Rodriguez, another huge business leader. These guys have figured out the systems it takes to really scale a business and your idea. And then the third pillar is, I messed up my pillar, right? Here we go. So MFC is supposed to be over here on events. I messed up. So on events, we have the Multifamily Conference. We actually have something called Moguls, which is a really special mastermind I do with the top real estate thought leaders from Canada and the US. So these are the speakers who you see on stage. These are the podcasters, YouTubers, authors. Lots of them have books. Course creators, online community managers, and we get together and figure out how we can make our impact better for our audience. How can we reach more people more effectively? So that's what we do there. So these are the 3 pillars of my business. Now, there's a whole bunch of different problems that we encounter that I have to develop systems for, right? So with the investments, it's like, okay, well, how do I actually find the deals that we can take down with our investors? I need to develop a system. If I'm not getting the result, the deals I need, it's because the system I have built isn't working. So my job as an entrepreneur in that case is to develop a better system. How can we, squeeze more value out of each investment so we can profit more for our investors and for ourselves? Well, that's a system. What's the business plan? How can we make that system better? If I'm not getting that result, it's because of the system I have failed to create. On the education side, how do we actually get the message out there so our students know that this course is for them? How do we actually relay this information in the most efficient way? What's the system for actually teaching this stuff? How do we break it down so it's manageable and not too complicated? All that sort of stuff, all these questions go with the education column. Now with the Multifamily Conference, that's a whole different beast, right? So Multifamily Conference, how do we actually market the conference? What's the system for that? How do we produce a show in the most effective, entertaining, impactful way? There's a system that we follow. There's a process. How do we select the AV and production companies? Again, it's a whole process that has to be created. If we're not getting the result, if we're not putting on the show I think we should, is because I failed to develop the system. And with moguls too, it's the problem is, how do I attract the top real estate thought leaders from across North America and make them want to come to this event, right? It's a system. And then how do we structure events to maximize impact? So as you can tell, it's all about the different systems and processes that, in my case here with my business, these are all the problems I'm dealing with on a daily basis. So I've actually developed a framework that I developed it by mistake, but it's a really useful framework in terms of developing systems, right? Because I think a lot of us, myself included, when we're first presented with a problem, and it's really frustrating, right? I'm really hard on myself. It's really easy to get frustrated. Your first thing that you think of is probably, oh, I'm so frustrating. Like, why can't I just figure out the answer? I just want the answer. Well, the answer is going to come at the end, but there's an actual process. So it's kind of funny. I've developed a system to create systems. So let me just share my 4-step framework in terms of developing this kind of stuff with you. Hopefully, hopefully you can take this and maybe use it in your business. Maybe you might have to shift things around for how your brain works. But this is how my brain works, right? 4 steps. So step number 1, it's define. So you have to actually define the specific problem that you're trying to solve, right? Because it's one thing to say, hey, like my customer, like I don't have enough leads coming into my lead funnel. I don't have enough customers to sell to. I don't have enough leads to qualify. Well, that's not really the problem, right? So I find finding clarity first is crucial, because unless you're very clear, crystal clear about the problem you're trying to solve, you can't really find a solution for that, right? It's like, well, how do you solve global warming, right? Well, first of all, you have to define exactly what global warming is and all the things in there too. And you may agree or disagree, there is even global warming, but that's just an example. So number 1, you actually have to define the problem and get very crystal clear. And you should be able to write out this your problem in a single sentence. That's how clear you have to be. So once you have clarity, once you know precisely the problem you have to solve, then I call it step number 2 is ruminate. So rumination, right? You have to really think about, okay, you have to give yourself some time to process it in your brain. You really have to think about the problem and all the different parameters. So I call it, another way to say this is clear thinking, right? Because it's really easy to allow your thinking to get clouded by emotion, right? By your frustration. The more you kind of think about it and take a step back, the more clear-headed you become in your brain. And so, like for example, with to take, okay, how can I get the Multifamily Conference in front of more people, right? There's all sorts of real estate investors out there. How do we reach more people so they will come to the event, and that way everybody wins, right? Because the more people there, the more connections people make, the more deal opportunities, the more potential investors, the more partnerships. Everybody wins the more people we get there. So how do we reach more investors? And if we're just using a single funnel of a single way of getting people to the conference, and that's not working, well, maybe I have to get some clear thinking done, and maybe I just have to accept the fact or think about, well, maybe we're actually going about it the completely wrong way. Maybe if I'm trying to sell it this way, I have to leave that and test a totally different way of doing things, right? So maybe you have one advertising funnel set up. You're running ads a specific way. Well, maybe you have to take a totally different approach, right? Clear thinking is going to allow you to do that. Like, the more you think about it, you have to think outside the box. Don't just get stuck on exactly what you were doing, right? So if we're talking about funnels, well, how do I optimize my headline? How do I optimize my copy? Should I try a video sales letter versus like a written, sales letter? All those sorts of things. But, maybe it's just a matter of, hey, well, maybe I'm just maybe my lead magnet is wrong. Maybe I have to do things a totally different way. And clear thinking really helps you do that. Number 3 is test. So I'll say step number 3 is test. So this is where you actually take all the ideas you come up with. Maybe you come up with 3 different solutions to the problem or potential solutions. Now you have to test them, and you're going to test them against what you're doing already, right? So, to use an advertising example, you have one funnel over here that you're using. You know that you're converting at X%. Well, now you're going to test your other 3 ideas and compare them against your control, which is your original idea, and see if they work better. If they do, then you shift over. If not, then you go back to the drawing board in step number 2. And then step number 4 is optimize. So how do you take your winning idea and how do you actually milk everything you can out of it? How do you get the best maximum impact out of that new idea. And that's where you start tweaking the little things like headlines, sales copy, how often you call a prospect, how often do you follow up, how many emails do you send, do you email, do you call, do you text, all these sorts of things you optimize there. So this is how I approach things in my business now. So I define the problem. I want to get crystal clear. I ruminate. So I want to have clear thinking about it so I can explore all the different options and really go outside the box and not just focus on, what I'm doing and how can I make what I'm currently doing better. I want to get a lot wider with it. Step number 3, we test it. And then step number 4, I want to optimize it to make sure it is the most impactful it possibly can be. So that's the framework I use to solve these problems, because remember, your number one job as an entrepreneur is to create systems. That's all you're doing, because a business is a collection of repeatable systems and scalable systems that work together to solve a problem in the marketplace. So I just want to, before we take a break, I just want to let you know we are about to draw very, very soon next week the winner of the free Multifamily Conference ticket. It's a loaded elite ticket. So that means you're getting into the official after party at Rebel Nightclub. You get access to our special workshop on Friday, where myself and a bunch of my investing friends are going to teach you everything you need to know to build a rock solid foundation for multifamily investing. Plus, you get access to the full conference and all that stuff too. So all you have to do is like and comment on this video, and you will automatically be entered into that ticket draw. Plus, we are giving away a free Mogul in the Making t-shirt today. Like and comment, and then Katie, who's at the controls, will be choosing the winner there. So let's take a quick break, and then coming up after Dwayne Rutherford and myself, he is the man behind the vision of the Multifamily Conference. We'll be talking about fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and meshing it all together. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. Really excited to have Dwayne Rutherford with me right here. So, Dwayne, what's shaking? Oh, we can't hear you, Dwayne. We need to turn on your audio. There we go. All right. So
I got so excited backstage listening to you speak there. I had myself on mute, just taking it all in, so I don't interfere with anything else. I forgot to turn my mute back on.
Oh, all good. Well, Dwayne, I'm really excited because everybody involved in the conference knows how much work you do with it, but most people on the front side don't really know who you are. So I'm really excited to be able to introduce you with everybody. So Dwayne is, I guess, your official title is what? Producer of the Multifamily Conference, something like that?
I am. We could call it whatever you want. I'm working with you and Katie to kind of help execute this vision, and super excited about what we're bringing to the audience this year, which will be not completely different, but definitely 10x what we did earlier in 2022.
Yeah, it's going to be insane. Like, I rented out the CU Tower, so that's how insane things get.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Dwayne, I'm really excited to chat today because not only besides your work on the Multifamily Conference, you are a father and you're an entrepreneur. So it's Dwayne, I think we're getting some feedback here. Do you have some headphones? I just hear myself in your audio.
Let me see how I can fix that.
Okay, well, while Dwayne is fixing that, I just want to remind everybody we are giving away the free Mogul and Making a T-shirt today. So all you have to do is like and comment this video. Katie will pick a winner, and then we've got the free ticket to the Multifamily Conference. It's a free loaded elite ticket. Just like and comment on this video or any of the past live streams this month, and again, we'll be picking the winner for that, and we're doing that every single month. So make sure you come and check. So, Dwayne, do you think we're good to go? If
we should be good to go now.
Beautiful. Okay, we'll run with it. So
right, awesome.
I guess like the first question I have for you is, what would you say are the three most important habits to be a successful dadpreneur? So somebody who's a father and an entrepreneur.
The three most successful habits. That's a great question. I think when I think about what I'm doing and how crazy my life is right now, the thing that kind of brings me some sanity is really around my time management and really how am I allocating the times to the different things that I want to get done. There's lots of things, of course, being a father that's involved, and you also know as being an entrepreneur, lots of things involved. So for me, it's really about time management. And, when we say when I'm focusing on work, make sure that time is dedicated work time, uninterrupted, just going and crushing whatever the goals are for that particular period. And trying to balance that on the other side. From the family standpoint, it's really about, when is family time? Like give that dedicated time. Let's not have that time be interrupted with, conference calls on the drive while the kid's sitting in the car with you. Give them their time, or spending that time before they go to bed, and ensuring that they're getting your undivided attention. Those are probably some of the strategies that I'm using to make sure that time is dedicated and being able to crush it on both sides.
Yeah, and the one thing I've realized with myself is how spoiled I was before I became a father with all the free time I had, because you could work as much as you wanted to, you didn't have anything else. But as soon as you become a dad and you start building a business, you really have to because if you neglect one, it will suffer. So you really have to try and go 100% on both. And I like the time management because, like, leading up to the conference earlier this year for MFC 22, no joke, like a lot of people saw my calendar. It was literally every 15 minutes was accounted for the whole day, from first thing in the morning all the way until like 7 o'clock at night. Like every 15 minutes was accounted for. So when things get that busy, it can be really hard to make that time. And that's like I still struggle with it, right? Because like when you have a really important project, like your brain's always going on it. I still struggle with unplugging my brain and being present when it's like family time, and that's one thing Darcy is rightfully on me about all the time. So there is definitely room for improvement. So
Yeah.
I guess like coupled with that, like how do you manage stress, right? Because like you've got stress as a father. And, I like the saying goes, like little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. So how do you manage the fatherhood stress and the stress of running a business too at the same time?
Yeah, great question. One thing I know is that there is stress. Like there's no denying it. But what I also know is that there's good stress and there's bad stress, right? And really identifying what am I feeling and how am I going to navigate that. And, for me, good stress is where, you have these amazing things that you're working on that you're super excited to accomplish. But yet there just doesn't seem to be enough time, and your brain is just overworking to try to figure out, okay, how are we going to like really make this thing successful, and make sure everybody's getting what they want. Then there's the bad stress where, you're not motivated by what you want to do, but it's kind of like wearing you down. It's wearing you down. And if I feel that way, I get up and walk away. But whatever I'm doing, I recognize that's what I'm feeling, and I get up and I walk away. One of the things that I've been doing recently, that's been actually very helpful, and I don't even know where I heard this. I can't even give anybody credit because I know I heard it from somewhere. I'm stealing it from somewhere, but I've tried it and it works for me, which is actually taking a break to eat, not eating in front of the computer. And when I do that, leave my phone in the office and literally sit down there, eat with no distraction, and literally count my bites as I chew. It sounds ridiculous, but the reality is it's actually becoming it's more mindful eating. And when you're more mindful of whatever it is that you're doing, it just removes all that stress. It removes all these other thoughts out of your head. And then you're able to recharge and you go back to the office, go back to the desk, and you're able to knock it out of the park because that all that all that clutter is now removed and you now have a clear path to kind of go ahead and crush your goals. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I've been dealing with stress recently. And you know me, I like to get a little bit of sweat and do a little bit of workout, so that also helps. I won't deny it.
Yeah. You know what? I should steal that idea because like anybody who knows me is I eat like the Cookie Monster. So I'm just like this. So I should probably slow it down a little bit. And like, the one thing with stress, like, you're right, like there's good stress and there's bad stress. And like for me, like good stress, like one of my main values, and we were talking about values last week, was like boldness and challenge, right? I want to continue to do things that stretches my limits, stretches my way of thinking. And that's obviously going to be stressful because like you're moving out of your comfort zone.
Mhm.
But then there's like the bad stress where like I get down on myself. I'm like, why can't you figure this out? And I realized very recently like how tight my body always was. Like, my shoulders, my neck, like all my
Mhm.
muscles were continually like tight because
Yeah.
I was like so stressed in my head. So I'm trying to breathe more and relax my body. And I found it actually helps a lot.
Yeah, definitely breathe. The breathing technique is serious, and meditating too. Like sometimes for me, I just get up and I walk around, just even if I just walk around my office for like 2 minutes and then sit down and try to meditate. Granted, when your mind is so busy, it's very, very hard to slow it down. And I'm not always successful with it. But even if I attempt to do it, it helps because it's just changing, it's just interrupting whatever I was going through. So then I can now focus on something else. So
Yeah.
that's also another technique that I've been using that, I've had some success with it. I won't say that that's a magic formula.
Yeah. No, that's I'm going to steal all your stuff. You know that. So I guess like when you look at fatherhood and entrepreneurship, like running a business, like what would you say is the hardest part of doing both?
um, I think I think the hardest part is not being for me, the hardest part is not being able to explain to my kids and my wife that the hours I'm putting in is a necessity. It's not an addiction. It's a necessity to actually do the business. It's not a 9 to 5 where you start at a certain time and you stop at a certain time and everything is done. But I can't. Only people that really understand that is other entrepreneurs who understand it's not a thing with a clock. It's like, is the work done? Yes or no? If it's not done, you got to get it done. And it's hard to get that message across to the family when they have other things that they want to allocate my time to, and I want to be there for them as well. Like I have 3 children at 17, 15, and 11, and they're in sports. My son plays basketball, as you know. My daughter does dance. My other daughter is in a leadership program, and they're all over the place, and I'm driving them all over the city. But if I have to miss something because I got to get some of my stuff done, then it becomes like, well, Dad, you're too busy. Dad, what's going on? You don't have time for us? And that part I find very hard, to be able to communicate. This is a need. This is a necessity, and everyone is going to benefit from this. But you have to put in the time. Like there's no shortcuts.
Yeah, like for me, it's like entrepreneurship and building a business. It's really about delayed gratification, right? Like you have to do the work, build the systems for the future end result. And sometimes I find like somebody who's not an entrepreneur that like they don't understand that delayed aspect to it. It's like no, like this is what I'm building, and in this time frame, this is what the result's going to be. It just doesn't happen overnight. And like that's it's hard to get people, like you said, who don't understand or who haven't done it. It's hard to get that message across. Yeah. So like let's say somebody's out, a father's out there right now, and they're looking to get into become an entrepreneur, like build a business. What sort of advice would you give them as they embark upon that crazy journey?
Advice I would give them is the fastest way to success is to go slow. So what I mean by that is there's always going to be a lot of things that's coming at you if you're trying to do something big and you're trying to do it right. But understand that it's not all going to happen at once. So if you go slow and you're methodical with your approach, you're really going to get a bigger bang for your buck at the end of the day, not just financially, but your time. So as much as it may be a slow process in the beginning, understand that that is just what it is right now. At some point, it's going to, you're going to get that hockey stick curve, and then things are really going to start to, I'm losing my word there, but really expand and get a lot bigger, right? So just give yourself that time and be patient with yourself, knowing that it will come to fruition given the time.
Yeah, no, for sure. And to do that, like I'll add my own little nugget. Like I find focus, like Gary Keller has a good book called The One Thing, right? So like, what's the one thing that's going to move the needle? Like whether it's like your first step in the business, like what's the one thing that's going to get you there? Because it's like that Pareto principle, right? That 80-20 rule. 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of the stuff you do. So narrow that down and focus. What's that one thing? Now you might not know it at the start. That's why you have to run through like the framework I ran through, but intense focus on, okay, well, what's going to move the needle next? That's why I would add in there. So I guess what do you want entrepreneurship to mean for you and your kids? Because I'm sure everybody's going to have a different answer to that.
Yeah, I was on a panel earlier this week in Niagara Falls, and somebody asked me the same question. And, for me, I've always, from, my teenage years, I believed in, designing my destiny, right? I believe that I will be able to design my future. And a big part of me designing my future is figuring out what is the legacy that I want to leave behind. And this is why I actually walked off of my 9-to-5 so I can become an entrepreneur, so I can then design the legacy that I want to leave behind. And that will be going to my children. So the work that I'm putting in now, yes, there's going to be some benefits for me while I'm here. But at the end of the day, the fruits of my labor, they're the ones that's going to be receiving those benefits. So I guess the answer for me is really about creating something that I can pass off to them that will allow them to have an option of what they want to do moving forward, right? If they want to take that, grow it, sell it, do something else with it, but give them something. And I can say, okay, that's been part of my legacy on I've been able to do on this planet.
Yeah. And you know what, like the legacy aspect's really important. So, I was talking about the 3 pillars of my business and the moguls group, the mastermind I run. And 2 of our members, or actually 3 of them, are now at the point where they're thinking about that succession planning and how are they setting that up? How are they actually going to pass it off to their kids? And like that's a really cool challenge to have, because now they're at the point where they've built something really special.
Yeah.
And now they have to figure out, well, how is this actually going to get transferred over? So that's a really cool subject to get into. So like, how does being an entrepreneur make you become a better father, or does it?
I think, yeah, I think it does. The first thing, the first thing that's popping in my mind is the fact that as an entrepreneur, things don't always go your way. You don't always get what you want. And there's a lot of frustration with that. So what it then teaches you is patience, right? And, I mentioned my kids are varying ages, and let me tell you something. The things that I've been working towards in my business that haven't worked out for me, and I go back and I look at some of the things that they're doing, and if I want to get frustrated, I just get reminded, you know what? I just got to be patient with them. So I think that's the first thing that's popping in my mind. I think it helps me take a step back and understand that, patience is something that they need, and it's helping me with my relationship with them. Because there's certain things, like my son is, he's 17, and, he thinks he knows it all. And, I can give him some advice, and I'm like, dude, I've been there. Like I've done that. Like, don't do this or do that. And, I wanted to be his own person, but at the same time, I'm trying to avoid him from, falling over a couple of hurdles. And he wants to go his way. So I said, okay, all right, you're going to have to fall. You're going to have to fall this time, and I'm going to have to to be patient.
Yeah,
right?
that was, I don't think anybody could have told me what to do when I was 17.
Likewise.
Yeah, no, that's really important. Like for me, I found like that just like getting into a really good relationship makes you like realize, just like a good relationship, entrepreneurship really highlights where you're lacking in terms of your skill set or your personality and how you do things. So like, with with entrepreneurship, if there's a challenge or something I'm not able to do just yet, it's probably a failing I have. I don't have a skill. I haven't upgraded my way of thinking about a problem. I haven't developed the system. So like I found over this crazy journey, I've actually become a much better person, a more well-rounded person, because that's what entrepreneurship demands. Like my business won't grow unless I grow as a person too. And I think the payoff for fatherhood is, well, now my son can actually benefit from a better person as a father who has more experience, or my more diverse experience, who's like challenged his thinking. So I think my son ultimately benefits from that 100%.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I like that.
Yeah. So it's, and the other thing too is I want to lead by example for my son, right? Because I don't think there's a more powerful way of leading than, from the front. So, if I'm able to build something really special and my son gets to be a part of it along the way, that's going to open his thinking and how he sees the world.
Yes.
And that's going to impact him. So that now, like, just because of everything I'm doing, he's now going to come into the world with a different mindset and believe and know that he can do some really special stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's like, for me, that's what it's all about. Like, and I remember holding my son when he was first born, and like all that stuff like flashed through my head. And that's what's driving me. Like, it's, yeah, sure, kind of what you were saying. Like, it's for you, it's the legacy aspect. It's the same thing for me. Like, and I want my legacy to be, how my son thinks and how he approaches things, and knowing that he can do really big things. Like, it's possible. You just have to, have the confidence and the mindset to do it. So no, I love that.
Yeah. I want to just, you mentioned, like, it really hit me, when you use the word specifically, setting the example. Like, that is it. Like, for me, I don't have any entrepreneurs in my family to say, hey, look, somebody set this example for me. But I've been around so many business people, and I've been a leader in, some pretty large organizations. And I've been able to see the examples that were set for me in those environments. And I'm thinking, okay, I want to be able to do that for my family. And how is the best way for me to do that? I can tell them to go be an entrepreneur while I'm doing something else. They're not going to believe me.
Yeah.
Even if I believe that, right? Which I do. I believe this is being an entrepreneur is the path to, unlimited financial freedom, if you do, based on whatever you want. But if I tell them that and I don't practice it and they don't see it around them, I'm not setting the example. So when you said that, it just really struck a chord, because that's essentially what I believe, and that's what I'm doing here in practice. So that was good. I like that.
Yeah. So like, when you have to learn a new skill for your business as an entrepreneur, how do you actually go through that process, right?
Yeah. So, this is something that I'm very committed to. Every year I allocate dollars to continuous improvement and education specifically. So I do online stuff. I do have an online coach that helps me with my business. And I actually just signed on another coach recently in the beginning of October for another aspect of my business to help me really look to grow. But I think it's just understanding that, if you don't take that time and you don't pause and don't invest in yourself, there's no way your business can grow. There's just no way. As much as you think there's any problem that you can go through, somebody else has already solved it. Probably 1,000 people have already solved it. So don't beat yourself up over not knowing. Work with somebody who already knows, has that knowledge, and invest in yourself. Right? That's the greatest investment that you can do for your business, is invest in yourself. So yeah. I literally put aside money every year to make sure that I'm doing that.
Yeah. I was just talking about this yesterday. I was getting the snow tires put on. We were the guy who owns the business there, like, we were talking about it, like, and, I like what you said about the coaching aspect, because basically, like, when you have a problem, when you need to learn a new skill, like you said, somebody's already developed the system for it. You just need to take their system and apply it. So, when you're hiring your new coach, you're paying for their systems to implement them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like, every time I can think, when I launched my podcast years ago, it was like, okay, who has the best system? So I sought out the best podcaster who I thought was out there. And that was Brian Rose. So I flew over to London, toured the studio, learned how he interviewed people, because I could take that. Now, Joe Rogan, I would say, is the most popular guy. Lex Fridman's another great podcaster. But if you're looking to start a podcast, well, just take their systems. When I was looking to launch my TV show, I found who I thought was running the most entertaining, the best, most educational, impactful TV show out there for real estate, and that was Chris Gray on Sky News. So I took his system of running his TV show and I applied it to mine. So, and that, I think, like, the biggest epiphany I've had in, like, business since I started was it's all systems, kind of like what I said before the break. It's all systems. So, if you can just take somebody else's system and apply it, like, they've already gone through the testing phase, they've gone through the rumination phase, they've gone through, like, the thinking stage, and they've perfected it. So just take their system and apply it.
Yeah, so, no, that's bang on, and that's exactly what I'm doing with the coach that I have, and that I've done in the previous years in part of my growth. Right, there's nothing that I need to invent. All I need to do is learn and tweak. I don't need to invent anything. So,
yeah, because with the billions of people who have lived on this planet, somebody else has had the same problem and they've found a solution.
Yeah, once or twice. Yeah.
And like, you can go back, like, it's, you can go back and read, like, Caesar and Gaul and stuff. Like, he developed the system for fighting the Gauls, like, and military leaders have been using his systems for years, for decades and hundreds of years, centuries. So I guess, like, what sort of, books and podcasts and other resources really helped you to start building your business and stay focused on it? Are there any big resources that stand out?
Yeah. From a podcast standpoint, there's a bunch of industry podcasts that I listen to, not necessarily specific on business building, but just more about staying current with what's happening in the industry. What are the new technologies out there with events? What are the new activations? What are the new things from a psychology standpoint that people are looking for in an event? Just listening to the leaders in the industry, having those conversations. I refer back to that on a regular basis to kind of make sure that I'm staying up to date with what's happening, not only in North America, but what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Africa, what's happening all over the world from an event standpoint, to make sure that when I'm working with my clients, that I'm always bringing the best and the newest and the latest ideas to them for us to experiment with, to see if that will be, attraction for their audience. when it comes to books, one of the books that I it's not one I've read recently, but I read a little while ago, a few years ago, that still stands out. I should remember the name of it. It's called Negotiate Like Your Life Depends on It.
Is that Chris Voss's book?
No, that's not Chris Fawcett. That book was instrumental for me because, what it really talks about. This is this guy. I wish I remember his name now. I should be Googling that stuff, but I want to focus on you. But the book was so instrumental for me because it was a point where, I started my business and, everyone's, trying to knock down my price and telling me I'm not, I shouldn't be charging this. I shouldn't be charging that. And I'm saying, no, I know what I'm worth. And here's my experience and here's what I've done. And, I know what I'm worth. So the book was really helping me with understanding my value and how to negotiate. And this is a military, person, and this kind of talked about all the situation that he's gone into. And when you start to negotiate and really explain to people and understand what it is that they really want out of the negotiation and what is it that you're looking for, you can actually come to a middle ground. But it was life and death situation he was dealing with, but then he was able to translate that back into a business situation, which I found very, very helpful where I was in the stage of my business at the time. So that's one book that I know that always stands out. Of course, I can't remember the title, but I'll get that title and share it with you, Seth.
All right, yeah, it'll come to you in like 5 minutes. I do that all the time. So yeah, like with me, I found like each stage of my business, I've like different books and different ways of thinking have been more impactful because if you're just in that incubation stage, you have different challenges than if you're a little bit more advanced and along your path. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think, like right at the start, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, everybody talks about it. Yeah. But Robert Kiyosaki's way of looking at his cash flow quadrant, job, self-employed, business owner, investor, that was a revolutionary way of me thinking about, well, where do I have to go? What do I have to build for that? And now, we're growing the team on my business side. And now it's about, effective leadership, which I'm not the best leader, but I'm trying to improve. So one book, a great one is called Turn the Ship Around. It's written by a former nuclear submarine captain. And he talks about bottom-up leadership. So empowering everybody below you in the hierarchy to bring their ideas up. That was really impactful too. And there's a whole bunch of other really great resources out there. You know what? I should do an episode where I go through like the top 10 books that have had the biggest impact. But yeah, okay. Last question.
Another great book is this book that I read, and it was called The Hard Things About Hard Things. Oh, that was a game changer for me. That book, oh my gosh, it's talking about all these different situations that was occurring during the whole internet revolution and internet coming online, and all these dot-com companies starting up and going out of business, and what was happening in Silicon Valley, and how you can get hundreds of $1 million in like a couple of months, and then all of a sudden you lose twice as much within the next month trying to get it. So it's about making all these tough decisions with these big dollars. And how you go about that and what you really have to think about. So as my business grows and scales, there's tough decisions to make, and understanding where you're going with those decisions and why you're making it. So
yeah,
another great book.
Yeah. And speaking of making hard decisions, there's a system for that too. I was just reading Patrick Bet-David's book, Your Next 5 Moves in Business. And he developed, speaking of systems in business, he developed his own system for making those decisions. So like it's all systems. I know we're running out of time, so I got one last question for you. Do you educate your kids on entrepreneurship and what it means? And if so, how do you do it?
So great question. I've literally, I didn't even know these questions were coming. So, but literally I had this conversation with my son, my eldest, I think it was like last Wednesday, a week ago today, last Wednesday. And starting to talk to him about, here are all the different things that you have to think about as an entrepreneur. So I'm trying to almost spoon feed him the information and teach it to him in terms that he understands. And for him, everything is relative back to basketball. So that's kind of how I do it. But that's something that I'm working on, and I want to be able to start doing that with my girls as well. But it's definitely a focus of mine to make sure that they have an understanding of what entrepreneurship is and why is it that, we do the things that we do and where is it potentially going to take us.
Yeah. Yeah. Like with me, my son, he just turned 6. So he's a lot smaller than your kids. And the one thing I'm trying to do now is like include him. So like, at the Multifamily Conference, he gets to come and meet Kevin. He gets to see all the big stuff we're doing. Because my hope is like, as he grows up, it'll just be a part of his life. Like it won't seem like a big deal is kind of what I'm trying to do. So like, it's like, oh, well, if I want to do something really big, I've been exposed to this for years. So it's just kind of normal. So it's getting rid of the roadblocks we put in our mind that tell us why we can't do something. But the one thing I am worried about, and I'm not sure if you have any tips because like your kids are older, is like, I find like, looking back when I was a kid, if somebody just like kept on me the whole time and just like vomited all this knowledge and stuff on me, that would actually turn me off from it because it would be too much. So like, how do you find the balance between, giving just enough information to keep them interested, but not going overboard where it's going to, have them just turn the total opposite way?
Yes, it's a great question. It's a tough one because I don't know if there's a perfect answer. I think every kid is also different. But I'm trying to spoon feed and just throwing ideas out there. And if there's anything they latch onto, then at that point, look to expand. But then sometimes once I see them shutting it down, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just pause. Because to your point, it's critical for me not to have my kids feel like if I'm just, giving them verbal diarrhea and they have to just digest this thing, like that is the worst thing. I don't want that. So it's just going to be, a spoonful at a time. And if there's something of interest, then we'll add on at that point. But it's like, not the verbal diarrhea. I can't do that.
No,
I'll turn anybody's away.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, and I'm trying to make it exciting too. So that's why we have extra fire next year at the Multifamily Conference. So that's interested.
That's right.
Dwayne, like, I think we should have more conversations like this because this was really cool. And props to Katie, who's behind the controls, for actually suggesting this idea. So Katie, thank you very much. I think more men, more fathers, more entrepreneurs should be having these conversations. So that's awesome.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, Dwayne. We'll see you at the Multifamily Conference, and you'll be starring in some videos coming up as we go behind the scenes with putting the big event together. So, thanks very much, Dwayne. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
All right. So I just wanted, before we wrap up today, don't forget to like and comment on this video. We have the monthly draw for a free loaded elite ticket to the Multifamily Conference, and that's coming up May 26th to 28th, 2023. Like you heard, I've rented out the CN Tower. I've rented out the top nightclub in the city, Rebel Nightclub. I've brought in absolute beasts to share with you their frameworks, their systems, speaking of systems, for investing in multifamily real estate and really succeeding in the real estate investing space. We got Grant Cardone, over $4 billion under management. Alex Rodriguez, he owns over 15,000 units, multifamily units. We've got Janet LePage coming. I think she's around $3 billion in assets under management. Some huge speakers coming to help you out. And then also we have the free t-shirt giveaway. So Katie, can you put in the private chat for me who is the t-shirt winner? Okay, so we've got the t-shirt winner, D, whoever the D was. I'm not sure. Katie, get in touch with Katie somehow. We'll put a comment, leave a comment. Let us know because we will need the size you want, your mailing address, your contact information. We'll send you out your free mogul in the making t-shirt. So thank you very much. So until next time, happy investing. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. I'll see you guys later.